Michael Dean Royer lived with his mother in a modest single-story home on the north side of Fremont, a city of roughly 24,000 residents in Dodge County, Nebraska. The home, located at 416 Osceola Street, was modestly maintained. The Royer family had no known history of criminal activity. Diane Marjorie Royer, 43, was a single mother and longtime employee of Fremont's municipal library. Described by colleagues as firm, punctual, and protective, Diane raised her only child with strict rules and a tightly controlled household. By spring 1994, their relationship had become strained. Michael, nearing legal adulthood, began expressing resentment toward what he viewed as oppressive domestic control. Several friends and classmates reported Michael had, on multiple occasions, referred to his mother as the warden and described his home as lockdown. He was forbidden from attending late-night gatherings, prohibited from obtaining a driver's license until graduation, and required to maintain a 9 p.m. curfew regardless of the day of the week. He was also grounded multiple times for minor offenses, including unauthorized phone use and playing video games past bedtime. Michael's academic performance had declined markedly in the 1993-94 school year. He failed Algebra 2 and was suspended twice for truancy. A guidance counselor, Ms. Lena Bishop, noted during a March evaluation that Michael exhibited anxiety, defiance, and episodes of dissociation during conversations involving parental authority. No formal psychological referral was made at that time. The precise point at which Michael decided to murder his mother remains unknown. However, analysis of his diary, later recovered from his room, suggested premeditation. A May 18, 1994, entry read, "If she weren't in the picture, I could live my life. I wouldn't need her rules." Another entry, dated June 5, stated, "No car, no parties, no girls, no freedom. She controls it all. If she was just gone." Friends later testified that Michael became increasingly fixated on crime literature and true crime documentaries, specifically those involving familial killings. On multiple occasions in early June, he visited the Fremont Public Library, where his mother worked, and checked out books on forensic science, particularly titles on blood spatter analysis, police procedure, and criminal profiling. On the evening of June 30, Michael was seen by a neighbor, Mr. Robert Vento, carrying what appeared to be a large duffel bag into the garage. He told Vento he was sorting old camping gear. Police later recovered a claw hammer, duct tape, and plastic sheeting from the bag, all items purchased at a local hardware store 3 days prior. That night, Michael waited until approximately 2:45 a.m., when his mother had retired to bed. He wore gloves and a hooded sweatshirt. Entering her room silently, he struck Diane Royer 3 times in the head with the hammer. Blood spatter analysis later confirmed that the blows were delivered while the victim was lying prone, likely asleep. Defensive wounds were absent. Michael then dragged the body into the bathtub and attempted to clean the scene using bleach and rags. Water samples collected from the drain contained traces of hemoglobin and tissue, confirming post-mortem washing. The body was then wrapped in the plastic sheeting and placed in the garage chest freezer. Michael left the air conditioning on high and sealed the garage door with duct tape in an attempt to suppress odor. He subsequently fabricated a cover story, telling neighbors and his mother's employer that Diane had taken an impromptu trip to visit relatives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He forged a note explaining her absence and left it on the library's front desk, signing it in her handwriting. The ruse held for 4 days. Between July 1 and July 5, 1994, Michael Royer maintained a facade of normalcy. He informed Diane Royer's workplace that she had left to care for a sick aunt in Sioux Falls. Her employer, Marcia Leclerc, found the explanation odd but accepted it, given the handwritten note supposedly left by Diane. Forensic examination later confirmed the note was forged, the pen pressure, slant, and character spacing deviated from known samples of Diane's handwriting. Michael also took several steps to obscure his mother's absence from their daily routines. He retrieved her paycheck from the library's finance clerk and deposited it at a local credit union using a pre-signed deposit slip. He visited the local grocery store and purchased ready-to-eat meals, indicating either avoidance of cooking or a desire to reduce kitchen activity. Surveillance footage from July 2 at the Hy-Vee on Bell Street showed Michael alone, purchasing cleaning supplies including bleach, air freshener, and rubber gloves. Neighbors noted a decrease in household noise, no vacuuming, no radio, and lights off by early evening. On July 3, neighbor Karen Polanski found a delivery notice for a flower arrangement on the Royer front door and attempted to ask Michael about it. He reportedly told her through a barely open door that his mother was sleeping and could not be disturbed. During this period, Michael began to dispose of evidence. On July 4, he rode his bicycle to the Platte River north of Fremont and discarded the blood-stained hammer, according to his later confession. The weapon was recovered 3 weeks later, partially embedded in silt, bearing traces of dried human blood matching Diane Royer's DNA profile. On the evening of July 5, Michael made a critical mistake. He attempted to access his mother's checking account to withdraw $200. The teller at Union National Bank, a friend of Diane's, became suspicious and refused the transaction, citing the absence of Diane's written authorization. When Michael returned the next morning with a shaky explanation and poorly forged note, the teller, Mrs. Glenda Norwood, notified the Fremont Police Department's non-emergency line. Responding officers initiated a welfare check at 416 Osceola Street at approximately 14:25 hours on July 6. Michael answered the door. Officers noted a chemical odor consistent with bleach or solvent upon entering the residence. Michael claimed his mother was still out of town and would return the following week. Despite lacking a warrant at that stage, officers filed a report requesting a follow-up due to suspicious behavior and inconsistencies in Michael's statements. They also contacted Diane's sister in Sioux Falls, who denied any visit or planned contact from Diane Royer. On July 7, a neighbor, George Mendoza, provided unsolicited information. He reported seeing Michael disposing of black garbage bags into a private construction dumpster behind the Fremont VFW post around midnight on July 4. Officers retrieved 2 bags from the site containing soaked clothing, latex gloves, and rags with high concentrations of human blood. At 7 o'clock hours on July 8, a search warrant was executed. Entry team officers breached the garage and located the chest freezer. Inside, wrapped in a plastic painter's tarp and partially frozen, was the body of Diane Marjorie Royer. Cause of death was immediately suspected to be blunt force trauma. Michael Dean Royer was arrested on site without incident. Following his arrest on July 8, 1994, at approximately 7:26 hours, Michael Dean Royer was transported to the Dodge County Sheriff's Office for questioning. The initial interview was conducted by Detective Sergeant Calvin Reiner, with Officer Janet Madsen present as witness. Michael was advised of his rights under Miranda v. Arizona and waived his right to an attorney at 8:03 hours. In the initial 2 hours of questioning, Michael maintained that he had found his mother deceased and panicked. He claimed she had slipped in the bathroom and struck her head. Investigators quickly challenged the account, noting the improbability of such a fall resulting in multiple cranial fractures and the presence of extensive blood evidence in multiple rooms. Faced with forensic contradictions and shown photographs of the blood-soaked towels found in the construction dumpster, Michael altered his story. At 10:41 hours, he admitted to losing control during an argument about curfews and struck Diane just once. He insisted he had no plan and acted impulsively. Detectives presented the recovered diary entries, including a June 23 note that read, "Test freezer capacity tomorrow. Should be enough." When confronted with this, Michael ceased speaking, requested a lawyer, and the interview was terminated. The Dodge County District Attorney's Office filed initial charges on July 9. 1 count of first-degree murder, Nebraska Reverend Stat Section 28 to 303. 1 count of abuse of a corpse, Nebraska Reverend Stat Section 28 to 1302. 1 count of tampering with physical evidence, Nebraska Reverend Stat Section 28 to 922. Michael was remanded to juvenile detention pending a hearing to determine whether he would be tried as an adult. Bail was denied on the grounds of premeditation and potential flight risk. On July 12, 1994, at approximately 22:18 hours, Michael Royer escaped custody from the Fremont Juvenile Holding Facility. He exploited a mechanical failure in the unit's rec room security door and exited through an unsecured loading dock used for kitchen deliveries. The escape was not discovered until the morning shift headcount. A region-wide manhunt was launched by the Dodge County Sheriff's Office with assistance from Nebraska State Patrol and the U.S. Marshal Service. Michael was listed on the FBI's Regional Fugitive Alert System as a minor fugitive charged with capital felony offenses. Evidence suggested he remained within Fremont city limits for the next 36 hours. A 911 caller, later identified as neighbor Janet Rohde, reported seeing someone resembling Michael walking along Military Avenue at approximately 2:15 hours on July 13. Another sighting was reported near the Fremont train depot, where officers found an empty food wrapper and a discarded hospital ID band later confirmed as belonging to Michael from his booking. On July 14, 1994, at 3:42 hours, Michael attempted to enter the residence of Wayne and Emily Kirkland, longtime family acquaintances. Emily Kirkland called police from a locked bathroom after recognizing Michael and telling him to wait outside. She reported that he appeared dirty, barefoot, and emotionally distressed, stating only, "I didn't mean it to happen like this." Michael was apprehended 6 blocks away without resistance by officers Dean Tallman and Erica Golding. After Michael Royer's recapture on July 14, 1994, he was placed in the Dodge County Jail under high-security observation. A competency evaluation was ordered on July 17 by Judge Arlen K. Stromberg to assess whether Royer could assist in his defense. Conducted at the Lincoln Regional Center over a 10-day period, the evaluation found Michael to be of average intelligence, showing no signs of psychosis or cognitive impairment. He was deemed competent to stand trial. On August 3, the Dodge County District Court held a transfer hearing to determine whether Royer would be tried as an adult. County Prosecutor Daniel Levain argued that the premeditated nature of the crime, efforts to conceal the body, and subsequent escape attempt met the threshold for adult prosecution under Nebraska Revised Statute Section 43-276. The defense cited Royer's age, lack of prior offenses, and a dysfunctional home environment as grounds for retention in juvenile court. The court ruled on August 10 in favor of adult certification. Judge Stromberg cited clear planning and calculated attempts to evade detection as justification. Michael Royer was formally arraigned on August 14, 1994, in Dodge County District Court on all previously filed charges. The local community reacted with sharp division. Fremont, a city known for its conservative values and family-centered culture, was shaken by the nature of the crime, particularly the revelation that Michael had plotted the murder while attending Fremont High School. The Fremont Tribune published over 30 letters to the editor in the month following Royer's arraignment. Themes ranged from condemnation of Michael's actions to concerns about mental health services for youth. A candlelight vigil was held for Diane Royer outside the Fremont Municipal Library on August 15. Attendance was estimated at over 200. Library Director Marcia Leclerc gave a brief statement, saying, "Diane served this community with dignity. We mourn her loss and the tragedy that surrounds it." Meanwhile, the Fremont Police Department increased patrols near local schools after rumors circulated that Michael had confided in a friend about others he hated. No credible threats or corroborating evidence were found. The case was transferred to Judge Stromberg's regular criminal docket by the end of August. Jury selection for the trial was scheduled to begin in late November. The trial of Michael Dean Royer commenced on November 28, 1994, in the Dodge County District Court. Judge Arlen Stromberg presided. The proceedings attracted regional media attention and filled the courtroom daily. Fremont residents, many of whom had known Diane Royer personally, followed the case closely. The prosecution, led by County Attorney Daniel Levain, presented a narrative of calculated matricide, emphasizing planning, concealment, and deception. The state called 21 witnesses over 6 days. Key among them were forensic specialist Dr. Evelyn Turek, who testified to the nature and pattern of Diane Royer's cranial injuries, asserting the blows were deliberate and consistent with a claw hammer. Detective Calvin Reiner, who recounted the interrogation process and Michael's evolving statements. Handwriting analyst Carol Mendez, who confirmed the forgery of the note left at the library. Store clerk Justin Fenner, who sold Michael the tarp, duct tape, and hammer. Neighbor George Mendoza, who witnessed Michael disposing of suspicious bags on July 4. Bank teller Glenda Norwood, whose suspicions triggered the welfare check. The state also presented excerpts from Michael's diary and surveillance footage of his behavior in the days following the murder. The defense, led by public defender Mark Rydell, did not contest that Michael killed his mother but argued diminished capacity. They painted a picture of emotional repression and an overly restrictive home environment that left Michael psychologically cornered. Dr. Allison Tremaine, a clinical psychologist, testified that Michael displayed signs of depressive and dissociative tendencies. The defense argued for second-degree murder on grounds of impaired judgment and lack of mature emotional development. During closing arguments, Louvain stated, "This was not an act of fear, but of convenience. He killed his mother to remove an obstacle. He knew what he was doing, and he knew how to cover it up." Jury deliberations began December 8 and concluded the next day. On December 9, 1994, the jury returned the following verdicts. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of abuse of a corpse. Guilty of tampering with physical evidence. At sentencing on January 6, 1995, Judge Stromberg stated, "This court recognizes your age, but not as a mitigating factor. Rather, as a tragedy. You had the intelligence to know better, the means to act otherwise, and the coldness to continue deception for days." Michael Dean Royer was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the charge of first-degree murder. An additional 10 years was imposed for the secondary charges, to be served consecutively. Michael Dean Royer entered the Nebraska Department of Correctional Services on January 12, 1995. He was initially processed at the Diagnostic and Evaluation Center in Lincoln before being assigned to the Nebraska State Penitentiary. He was designated as inmate number 746203. At intake, Royer was recorded as 6 feet 1 inch tall, weighing 154 pounds, with no documented medical issues. Psychological assessments conducted during intake revealed no indicators of psychosis or acute mental illness. However, evaluators noted elevated traits associated with antisocial and depressive tendencies on the MMPI-2 diagnostic profile. Dr. Leo Kavanaugh, prison psychologist, summarized Royer's early psychological state in a 1996 report. Subject demonstrates intellectual stability and functional literacy. Emotional insight remains undeveloped. Exhibits low affect when discussing the victim or crime. From 1995 to 2000, Royer maintained a clean disciplinary record. He completed GED tutoring in 1996 and began working in the prison's data entry program. He was described by staff as orderly, quiet, and rule-compliant. He spent extensive time in the prison library and was observed rarely engaging with other inmates beyond minimal conversation. In 1998, Royer filed a direct appeal claiming ineffective assistance of counsel. He alleged that his trial attorney failed to explore alternative mental health defenses or seek a plea bargain. The Nebraska Court of Appeals reviewed transcripts and denied the motion, ruling the defense had acted within the bounds of competent representation. A 2000 motion for post-conviction relief, based on an alleged Miranda violation during the July 8 interrogation, was also denied. The court found no grounds to believe his waiver of rights was coerced or uninformed. In 2004, Royer enrolled in a correspondence-based restorative justice program facilitated by a nonprofit in Iowa. Though he completed the coursework, his responses to victim empathy modules were described as detached and formulaic. In an optional exercise requiring a hypothetical apology letter, Royer submitted a single sentence. "There is nothing I could write that would mean anything." Between 2007 and 2010, Royer filed 3 additional motions, 2 seeking sentence modifications and 1 challenging his adult court certification. All were dismissed without hearing due to lack of new evidence. By 2014, Royer had been transferred to the Tecumseh State Correctional Institution, a higher security facility with expanded vocational and academic services. He was offered placement in group therapy but declined. In 2019, a Nebraska Office of Juvenile Justice Task Force conducted a statewide review of youth life sentences. Royer's case was included in statistical analysis but received no recommendation for reevaluation. A summary noted. Subject has shown neither rehabilitative progress nor petition for commutation. Maintains minimal social contact. 0 visitor activity since 2003. A 2023 report by prison psychologist Dr. Randall Estes concluded. Inmate Royer presents no current behavioral risk but also no indicators of emotional growth. Subject remains cognitively stable, interpersonally avoidant, and ideologically flat. As of 2024, Michael Dean Royer remains incarcerated at the Tecumseh State Correctional Institution in Johnson County, Nebraska. Now 47 years old, he has served nearly 30 years of a life sentence without the possibility of parole. His custodial status is reviewed every 3 years as required by administrative procedure. No changes in behavior, rehabilitation progress, or security classification have been reported since 2014. Royer's case has largely faded from public consciousness. Local news coverage ceased after the denial of his last appeal in 2010. The town of Fremont, Nebraska, quietly remembers the tragedy without formal observance. A plaque installed in 1996 at the Fremont Municipal Library commemorates Diane Marjorie Royer, noting her 17 years of service. Staff members maintain a small memorial garden behind the building in her name. Each July 1st, several library staff members privately observe a moment of silence to mark the anniversary of her death. Her grave at Ridge Cemetery, maintained by anonymous donations, bears a modest bronze marker. Diane M. Royer, 1951–1994, in quiet service, strength. In 2018, the Nebraska State Historical Society published an annotated catalog of notable regional crimes. The Royer case was briefly profiled under Juvenile Matricide, with a note on its legal precedent regarding adult court certification. In 2022, a graduate thesis submitted to the University of Nebraska's Department of Criminology included the case as part of a study on non-psychotic adolescent murderers. The paper noted Royer's emotional opacity, advanced cognitive planning, and resistance to rehabilitation. Within the correctional system, Royer remains an enigma. Officers describe him as neither hostile nor particularly cooperative. He continues to work in the facility's archival services unit and has not requested a cellmate since 2005. He receives no visitors and has not made phone calls in over a decade. Staff report he reads frequently, primarily legal reference books and historical biographies, and rarely speaks unless spoken to. Royer has never granted an interview nor submitted a statement for clemency or forgiveness. As recently as a 2023 administrative review, he marked "No" on the optional section offering inmates a chance to submit comments on sentence reflection. The Nebraska Department of Correctional Services maintains an updated but unremarkable profile for Royer in its inmate database. Under Program Participation, it lists Vocational, Data Entry, completed. Academic, GED, completed. Therapeutic, declined. Visitation, none recorded. No further legal motions are pending. No petition for sentence reconsideration has been filed. Barring a constitutional review or clemency initiative by the governor's office, Royer will remain incarcerated for life. Case status, closed, inmate number 746203 active. No further judicial review pending.